This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome, everybody, to the WWE Podcast. It is Monday. Yes, it's Monday, October 13th, 2025. We are here for the Monday Night Raw review a little early because, well, Monday Night Raw was about 12 hours early. So we're going to cover all the events of the show. Boy, was it an eventful show. Something happened. Can't quite put my finger on it, but there's rumblings of something happening. We'll go over that in just a few moments. I want to thank you, everybody, for joining me here on the show. If you want to support the show, you can, of course, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe to get your ad-free streaming experience. You can also go to strongcoffeecompany.com and use our promo code WWEPOD to get 20% off your order. And it lets the site know that we sent you, and it does help support the show, I promise you. So I did have their coffee yesterday and this morning, and I'll tell you, it's better than your Folgers. StrongCoffeeCompany.com. Use WWEPOD at checkout, and then you get 20% off. But beyond that, okay, there is something being restructured at Patreon. We are getting rid of the base dollar tier, and it is no longer the NXT tier. If you're in that tier right now, well, it'll remain until you until your 1 month is up, whenever that is, and then you'll have to decide if you want to stay with us or not. Our base level is now going to be something called the Jobber tier, and that starts at $3 a month. But there's going to be extra benefits coming with that, and we're getting rid of our top tier and kind of streamlining things to just a few tiers to make things a little bit more accessible. So check us out if you're interested. We have a new logo. We are restructuring our Patreon, and we're back on X, restructuring that as well. We're kind of doing a revamp here, a refresh, a rebrand, but we're going to give you the same great content, bringing on some guests, some new voices, and hopefully that, kind of gets you back into the fold if you've left us or if you're staying with us. I appreciate that as we move forward. Now, let me just talk about the big elephant in the room here. Bron Breakker spearing Seth Rollins at the end of Monday Night Raw, not on everybody's bingo card. I mean, how could it be? That was something that felt 3 years too soon, at least. Maybe that's exaggerated, about a year minimum too soon. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know why WWE and Triple H felt that just a few months into the vision just starting to get going, that Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed turn on Seth Rollins. And now you have Paul Heyman also seemingly aligning with them. And does this turn Seth back babyface? Maybe, I would think. Or did WWE just simply run out of opponents for Seth? I mean, that seems unlikely, given that they could have easily recycled CM Punk. They could have gone back to LA Knight. They could have gone back to Jey Uso. I was advocating for a Fatal 4-Way at the Saturday Night Main Event on November 1st, but they're not going that way. They're seemingly going with Bron Breakker, probably versus Seth Rollins for the world title, and there's a good chance that when Breakker faces Rollins, he could win. I don't know why they're fast-tracking this. I don't think Bron is ready. From what I've seen, WWE clearly has other plans. And before I crap all over this, I want to see where it goes. And maybe Bron has a breakout year and we say, wow, that seemed a little bit too soon, but Breakker has been kicking ass. Maybe that's how we feel. We don't know. I am a patient fan. I'm willing to let this play out and see where they go. Now, I'm not going to let this go for 6 months, but in a month or two is kind of where I would take the temperature and be like, hey, so was this worth it? I kind of felt the same way with the Judgment Day. If you remember, Edge was ousted from the Judgment Day so quickly. And I said at the time, this makes no sense. And to this day, I still believe that they could have got a lot more with Edge had they not turned on him so damn quick. And I know he went on to leave to go to AEW. I understand that. But there was still a lot of a lot of contributions he could have made to the Judgment Day, and that felt way too premature. This feels the same way, where it's very premature that you have a guy that is being built up alongside his cohort, Bronson Reed, getting the rub from Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman. Now, Paul Heyman is seemingly going to remain with Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. That's fine. You could have those two go against, one another, or rather, you could have those two start to dominate Seth, and you could have those two go off on their own, maybe win the tag titles. My guess is that they need a spot for Brock Lesnar. So I think you could easily have Seth, the babyface, by default now, I would guess, I'm doing a lot of guessing, I know, but with everything with pro wrestling is just a guess. You could have Seth, now being betrayed by Paul Heyman, add him to the list of those that have been betrayed, along with CM Punk, along with Brock, along with Roman Reigns. And you could have Seth say, hey, you two may have the advantage right now, but I've got somebody that can even the odds. And out comes Brock Lesnar to the shock and horror of Paul Heyman. But Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins taking on Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, that's a fun tag team match. Is it not? That's a tag team that you would think would win. Brock Lesnar standing face-to-face against Bron Breakker, there's a potential WrestleMania headlining event. I'm not going to say main event because no title would presumably be on the line, but who knows? But Bron Breakker versus Brock Lesnar, face-to-face for the first time in a tag team match to tease a potential future one-on-one? Yeah, sure. Despite what you think of Brock Lesnar, I don't want to hear any of your lies that would not be intriguing. That would be, just objectively. Now, if they're not going that road, of bringing in Brock, then where do they go from here? Seth is going to get outnumbered. Seth's going to take a beating. He might get the advantage, and then here comes Bronson, or he gets the advantage on Bronson, and then here comes Bron Breakker. We know how that's going to go. And then who comes to the aid of Seth? Well, Seth doesn't have any friends. Certainly doesn't have a friend in Roman Reigns, doesn't have a friend in CM Punk, doesn't have a friend in Jey Uso, doesn't have a friend in Seth or LA Knight. None of those guys should come to the aid of Seth. That would make no sense, despite the fact that they're now by default on the same team of being babyfaces. It still would make no sense given the past recent storylines. So Brock Lesnar seems to be the de facto choice to take on Braun and Bronson. So yeah, that's how I think where they're going. But okay, they get that match. This better have long-term implications. Not just, we need a spot for Brock. I really hope that there's a plan here, because the Vision was, again, gaining momentum and doing a nice job. They just came off of a huge PLE. They just came off of two massive victories. Bronson Reed taking down Roman Reigns. Seth Rollins beating Cody Rhodes. Breakker having a devastating night as well. You would think that there would be some kind of reward for this group instead of breaking up the next night. And yes, kudos to the company for doing it when the credits came on, which no one saw coming. Certainly nobody saw that coming. I was actually talking about the fact that, hey, Bron Breakker could be the one to eventually face Seth, but it felt too early. I said that in the review show. And here we are, and it happened. I did not foresee that. I figured it was a year minimum down the road, and here we are. Apparently WWE feels he doesn't need to be in this group, and they feel that Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed are better off solo acts or a tag team for a time to run roughshod over the company. Maybe, again, you're going to have Seth opposing them, but outside of Brock, who's going to be there once every 6 weeks at best, who's there to take them down? You have the default babyface group that I mentioned, the four, but this is something that I just would love to know their plan. If I was to say to the writers in Triple H, hey, you guys did this, pretty big move, seemed very premature. What's the payoff here? If I could get that information, I'd love to know what that is. Is it Bron Breakker winning the world title off of Seth Rollins at the Saturday Night Main Event? Very well could be. Could be Bron Breakker winning the world title if they really want to shake things up. I think Seth is deserving of a much longer run than this. That would, again, I think also be premature for Bron Breakker to win the world title. I wouldn't oppose it outright. It just feels much too soon. And again, I don't know what's going on internally. You don't know what's going on internally. But from a fan perspective, from the outward lens, which is all we have to go on beyond rumor and X and Twitter, and that's it. This does seem a bit premature. So time will tell. I'm intrigued. I am intrigued with a side of concern. And I hope this is all worth it, because it feels like Seth just turned heel a few months ago. He got the vision going, and then wham, like the momentum was not like they broke up the vision before they broke up the Judgment Day. How is that possible? How is that possible? The vision was on fire, getting going. And yes, I understand they were setting the table during the show, and Seth saying, hey, I don't need anybody. I didn't need anybody. I chose these guys. Okay, fine. That did seem a little bit confrontational. Yes, it did. And some of you could look back to that and go, oh, see what they were doing there. But I don't see the need for it. I don't know what the payoff is, at least right now. I'm willing to let the story play out, but I'm erring on the side of concern. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Email me, mailbag@wwepodcast.com. Give me your thoughts. This is one that perplexes the mind right now, but perhaps there is something bigger and better waiting that we're all going to go, oh. And I hope it's not just for a Saturday Night Main Event where they didn't know where to fit Brock in. There has to be more than that. If this was just looked at as a short term, and we'll figure it out, they're talented, we'll figure out where to put, then shame on them. You know, that is hopefully not the perspective they were coming at this with. But we'll see. So there's much more to get to on Monday Night Raw, of course, but I wanted to touch on that right off the top because everyone's talking about it. Rightfully so. You saw all the reactions from the typical YouTubers. And I saw a funny meme. I don't know if anybody else has seen this, where the price of tickets, as we all know, has gone through the roof. Mark Shapiro, the president of the company, has infamously and probably regrettably talked about how they're not pricing for families, they're pricing to make money. Terrible, terrible, terrible quote. I've gone over that. You know, you can say that internally. You don't say that outwardly. You're a fool. So that has not helped the company. And but the reality is, hey, you are pricing this insanely high. I mean, the prices for tickets are just stupid, and they are truly pricing families out, which is just a dumb move where you are sure going to make more money in the short term. But what about the next generation of fans that can say, hey, I went to the WWE show. You know, I went to a WWE show. That's what hooked me. Going to the live event, there's nothing like it, especially as a kid. And a lot of families are going to be like, yeah, no, I can't do that. I can't bring my kid or 2 kids or 3 kids, you know? So while they may make more because fans are somehow willing to pay this amount, which we should all stop to tell them to F themselves. Like, you want to send a middle finger to WWE management and TKO and Mark Shapiro and everybody else trying to price us out? Don't buy the goddamn tickets. That may send the biggest message of all. Instead of complaining online, we just don't buy them. But yeah, I've gone over that too. But just to, kind of reiterate the point, you are thinking short term when you charge people more, knowing that you're pricing families out. But the pricing the families out is what's going to create you more money long term, because they're going to create a new generation of fans who are then going to bring their kids and so on and so forth. Because then they're going to create more fans who are lifelong fans, a lot of people, and they invest many, many years and money and time into the product to watch it, buy the PLEs, buy the subscriptions, buy the merch, video games, and so on. So, yeah, it seems like they're just thinking at the moment short term, and maybe they're just trying to make as much money as they can because TKO, the parent company, is not doing well with cash flow. So maybe that's what they're thinking. But nonetheless, let's start with Monday Night Raw here. Let's dive in. We'll get into more things here. So we did have Seth at the beginning here. Seth did talk about let's see. He spoke about Crown Jewel, and he said, in case you wankers didn't know, he said that this is the vision, my vision. And he introduced Heyman and said he is a blessed man for being in his presence. And Rollins and Heyman hugged, and Heyman kissed Rollins on the cheek. Rollins kissed the top of Heyman's head, and he then turned his attention to Breakker and said there were questions about his potential 6 months ago. And Rollins said Breakker had flourished since they joined forces. And Rollins called Breakker the future of the industry. And Rollins said Reed was on the shelf 6 months ago and couldn't have beaten Roman Reigns. Rollins said that with his vision, he gave Reed every bit of knowledge he had about Reigns, and Reed beat and destroyed Reigns. Rollins called Reed the new tribal chief, and Reed and Heyman raised their index fingers in the air, and a CM Punk chant broke out. Rollins said, no one is on his level, and unlike the other greats of his generation, he didn't need anyone to achieve his success. Rollins said Reigns needed the Shield and the Bloodline, and Cody Rhodes needed Rollins to beat Reigns. And he said he didn't need anybody and won the championship on his own, which of course is just, he's a heel, so he did need a little help. But he said he didn't need them in the ring. He chose them. He chose to be with them. And he closed with his revolutionary stuff, and that was it. That was it. So Penta was then shown backstage. Rusev approached Penta and said he already beat him. And Dominic Mysterio cheated him out of an Intercontinental title. Reigns acknowledged the Dom versus Penta match, and Rusev acknowledged, rather, the Dom versus Penta match and said he might allow it because he was promised a shot at the winner of the match. He told Penta he hadn't forgotten the kick last week, and Penta made his hand gesture and walked away, and Dom entered the picture, spotted Rusev, and turned around without being spotted, which was funny. So we then got the match. Dominic Mysterio taking on Penta for the Intercontinental Championship. The match went 15 and a half minutes with Dom beating Penta after a pretty good match. You got two luchadors in there that work very well together. Young, good chemistry. They've worked several times before, as you'd expect, and Dom continuing to get the cheers here. I mean, yeah, there were some boos, but man, oh man, I mean, Dom is on his way to an consistent Eddie Guerrero type of response. And they hit on that again tonight, because the finish was Penta getting a near fall. Rusev comes out to boos. Penta hit Rusev with a flip dive, and Dom grabbed his title belts. He dropped the AAA Mega Championship and grabbed the ring bell hammer. And then Dom left the belt in the ring. The ref saw the belt in the ring. And then Dom hit Penta in the abdomen with a ring bell hammer, and he tucked the hammer perfectly into his boot. I mean, it just disappeared. And he hit the 619 with the hammer in his boot and got the victory. Good match. I mean, good match, great finish. Crowd loved it. Dom is becoming just that endearing, how are you going to cheat to win this time? It's a very rare sweet spot that you can find a wrestler that cheats to win, that the fans love to see cheat to win. Eddie Guerrero was famous for that. Maybe his most famous trait of all was that, being able to lie, cheat, and steal, take things that are generally looked at as bad traits in human beings and make it something endearing, make it something the fans love to see. It's difficult to thread that needle. Eddie did it with perfection, and I think Dom is starting to pick it up. I mean, it's just fun to watch Dom now. A kid that was just obnoxious backstage when you remember him with Rey Mysterio especially during the pandemic era, and they were just a generic tag team. He was not really given a personality. He was just the little son, the little kind of chip off the old block, and nothing changed his career quicker than kicking Edge in the nuts. That's, if you remember where it happened or who he did it to, where he made his turn. Just beautifully done. And from there, he was one of the most hated men in the company for years. Fans wouldn't let him speak, and now he's coming back full circle. Fans have had a chance to just hate him for years. It's kind of done. They are just finding him entertaining now. I mean, the fans got it all out of their system, and boy, it took a while. But I hope they don't try to bring it back. I don't need Dom a heel anymore. He's just too much fun. So Dom retains, and the crowd loved him. And next week we get Dom versus Rusev for the Intercontinental title. But Jackie Redmond interviews LA Knight backstage. Knight spoke about becoming number one contender. CM Punk comes in and said Knight stole the pin from him last week and wouldn't win this week. And we were then shown Asuka where Kairi was seated, and Asuka scolded Kairi for losing at Crown Jewel, and Sane said she was sorry and could fix it. Asuka said that Sane would face Rhea Ripley during Raw, and Kairi showed off a bruise on her forehead and said it was because she tried to help Asuka, who responded by slapping her in the face. And then Rhea Ripley comes out, and we get Rhea Ripley with Io taking on Kairi Sane with Asuka. The match went nearly 16 minutes. Nice long match here. And match was good as we got, as I said, Rhea Ripley beating Kairi in 16 minutes. And after the match, Asuka hit Sky from behind. Ripley attacked Asuka, cleared the broadcast table, and Ripley stood on the broadcast table and pulled Asuka onto it. Kairi hit Ripley from behind with a kendo stick, and then Asuka put Ripley down with a DDT on the table, and Asuka and Sane stood over Ripley on the table. So heels getting their heat back after a pretty big loss at Crown Jewel. And it is nice to see that happen. And I would think that for the moment, for the time being, Io and Ripley are both out of the women's title picture, which is also still a nice breather, a break from those two just in perpetuity being involved in the women's title match, in the title hunt. These two are just in a personal grudge with Io, or rather with Kairi and Asuka. Good to see. I mean, maybe they go another PLE after this too. It's possible. Io and Ripley are a nice team. They work well together. They're both in need of this position, of a break from the women's title picture, working on and working together as a team to not chase a championship, but to get through a personal grudge and get revenge. You can't go wrong. Something that is not often done and needs to be done more, not just for the women's division, but as a whole. It can happen. Not everything needs to be about championships. So, one thing I would say, one criticism, and this is just kind of a women's division criticism that can easily be cleaned up. It's a very simple, easy solution. This is something that I've noticed for months now, and I don't know what is happening or why. The women, when they take headshots, and I say that very loosely, with the biggest air quotes possible, off of the broadcast table, when their head is being rammed over and over and over into the announce table, the way that it looks is horrible. It looks horrible. Like, what I mean by that is just embarrassingly fake. Becky Lynch did it the worst I've ever seen it. It was almost like she was just trying to purposely make it look bad. This was a couple months ago on a PLE. I can't remember which it was. It might have been WrestlePalooza, but I could be wrong. It looked the worst I've ever seen. And the same thing here with, I think it was Io. And it looked horrific. Can we learn how to take headshots to the table, or maybe not always have to ram them over and over and over? Because when you do that, you see very quickly that they're not even coming close to hitting their head on the table. So I'm sorry. It's just it for some reason has been just a sore thumb of a spot for the women over the last couple of months. And I don't know what it is. All right. Again, very easily fixable. Make it look good, slow down, or don't do 50 in a row where they clearly are using their forearms to block their head from hitting the table. And I'm not advocating for the women to actually hit their head on the table. Of course not. But you got to make it look good. Okay. We then have backstage, Jimmy complained to Jay that they helped out Roman, yet they're being blamed for it. And Jay said all Roman does is look out for himself. Jay said maybe they should start doing the same. And Jimmy said that didn't sound like Jay, who said he can't make the mistake he made in Paris. And Jay said he helped Reigns in Paris, and then he wasn't ready for his match, and it cost him the world championship. Jimmy got upset and wondered if Jay thought he couldn't handle Bronson Reed. Jimmy told Jay to handle his own business just as he would handle his. And then that's when we get Bronson Reed versus Jimmy Uso. So again, more tension, this time not between just Jay and Roman with the miscalculation at Clash in Paris, but the tension between the brothers. I made a big stink about this on the review show. Why? We're now seeing tension all around. There doesn't need to be. This is not interesting at all. We certainly don't need to revisit, out of all of the combinations of these three men fighting one another, the worst of all is Jimmy versus Jay. You don't believe me? Go watch WrestleMania from last year. One of the worst matches I've ever seen at WrestleMania. And I know that that's kind of a high bar. It was horrible. It's weird to say, given how talented these two are, two future Hall of Famers, everything they've accomplished as a team, but as opponents, just it was just putrid. So I don't need to be teased with that rivalry at all. I don't know what they're doing here. I don't know what they think they're gaining even by teasing us, but they're not going to follow through. The teasing isn't necessary because no one wants to think about the actual explosion of these three in any way. But if you're going to actually do it, I mean, that's even worse. So I'm not sure what's happening, but let's go. Bronson Reed versus Jimmy Uso. The match was very quick here, 7 minutes and 40 seconds, with Bronson Reed beating Jimmy Uso. And it happened after Jimmy avoided a senton, and Jimmy hit what Cole called, quote, an Uso in the wind, and covered Reed for a 2 count. Jimmy tried to power up Reed, but he collapsed under the weight of Bronson Reed. And that's when Reed hit Jimmy with a pair of sentons and a tsunami for the victory. After the match, Breakker comes out and congratulated Bronson Reed, and they started to head toward the back, but Breakker stopped, looked back. He ran to the ring and speared Jimmy. Reed entered the ring and held Jimmy while Breakker speared him again. That's when Jay comes out, stopped Breakker in his tracks while he was running around the ring for another spear. And Jay hit the ring and went after Reed. Breakker came in and was cleared by Jay, who was hit by Reed in the corner with a splash. And eventually Jay and Jimmy bickered before Jay made his exit. So interesting here. I mean, despite all of my criticisms and complaints and concerns about any of this intra rivalry between Jimmy, Jay, and Roman and Jimmy and Jay, like I don't care about any of these three combinations in any capacity fighting one another. But that said, maybe the only shining light here, maybe the only positive, is despite all of that, Jimmy Uso is actually doing something relevant, which, hey, if I'm Jimmy Uso, I'm thinking this is great. Keep this going. I mean, he has to be the only one petitioning to keep this going, while the vast majority of the audience is saying, please don't, please don't. And Jimmy's like, no, I haven't done anything in a couple of years now. Please let me do this. So, I mean, for Jimmy, it's relevant, but I don't know where we're going here. It feels like maybe they're just buying time. My hope is that this is all just to buy time to whatever big match that these two are going to be involved in next. That's not against one another. It's just to create something interesting, some kind of talking piece between these two, to keep things interesting. And there's a little tension. But maybe WWE has no intention of actually having them compete against one another. There's no actual talk of them turning. Anybody turning. My hope and faith is in that option. But we'll see. So, all right, Bayley and Lyra were warming up for their match when Valkyria said she doesn't know if she can count on Bayley. Lyra said their tag team match was a one-time thing. And Happy Bayley laughed at her and acted like Valkyria didn't mean what she said. And Bayley made her entrance, and so did Lyra. So they took on Raquel and Roxanne. The match went 11 minutes and 10 seconds. The winners are, if you saw Raw, Bayley and Lyra. So finish is Valkyria trying to get Bayley to snap out of a daze and eventually slapped her. Bayley laughed maniacally and then ran past Valkyria and hit both opponents with a suicide dive. Bayley ran Rodriguez into the ring post and then dumped her into the timekeeper's area. Bayley rolled Perez back in the ring, hit a top rope elbow drop, and then Bayley followed up with Rose Plant really quickly. I mean, she just rushed to that finish and got the victory. Bayley was intense after the match, but she hugged Valkyria before rolling Perez out of the ring. So this is a Bayley that can change personalities by slapping her. I guess that's the switch, is just by slapping her is how she changes personality types. That's the whole thing. I mean, it's a bit like, and that's not a good analogy. I was going to say Festus. Remember when the bell would ring and he would just stand there in this kind of comatose state? Not quite the same thing. But I guess Valkyria knows that she can change Bayley's personality by slapping her. Okay, fine. Fine. If that's where we want to go, cool. You know what? I could criticize this a little more, but at least Bayley's doing something relevant too. Much like Jimmy Uso, who needed something to do. This is keeping Bayley on TV and giving her minutes instead of being backstage or doing one-offs and then not seeing her for months at a time. Bayley's doing something, and it's also helping younger talent like Lyra get some shine. So that's fine too. It is a bit silly. It is a bit silly. I'm glad that they, at least for the time being, stopped with the promos, because that's where I kind of drew the line of you could hear her voices in her head. Somehow they would manifest on camera, yet they're in her head. How does that work? I don't want to hear that I'm overthinking it. Just enjoy the show. No, there comes a point of just sheer stupidity and a level of just quote unquote enjoying the show that I'm not willing to stoop to, because I don't have an IQ that is under 50, which is what they seemingly were hoping that we were, that the vast majority of the viewing audience was at an IQ under 50 and able to enjoy some of the stuff that they put forth. So it's at least, again, positives here. Bayley's doing something. The Valkyria has seemingly found the switch that she can use to put Bayley into this intense mode. Fine. And also for Raquel and Roxanne. I mean, Bayley is the biggest star by far in that 4-woman matchup here, but it helps everyone. Everyone get TV time. Everyone being able to work with Bayley, and that's a good thing. Okay, see, I ended on a positive note. So backstage, Seth Rollins is speaking with Paul Heyman and said the last 6 months were nothing compared to what's to come. He said he felt that something big was on the horizon. Dun, dun, dun. Heyman then touched Rollins' arm, which made him wince. And then Breakker and Reed entered the room. Rollins told them that this had been the most incredible weekend of his professional life. He said the birth of his children, marrying his wife, and seeing the growth of them are some of his proudest moments. And he said this is the mountaintop. He told Breakker and Reed to breathe in the rarefied air, and he said he felt like they were close to taking the next step, and said that he was on cloud 9 and no one could knock him off that mountaintop. Again, a lot of kind of heavy-handed foreshadowing here. I mean, I'm sure that even though if you were watching this, you were thinking, yeah, this is a setup for an eventual turn, you weren't thinking it's going to happen like last night, But it was insanely heavy-handed, especially looking back now. Just kind of like driving the point home. This is the top. No one can knock me off. I feel like I'm on the precipice of something big. On and on and on. Not exactly subtle. Not exactly subtle, subtle storytelling here. And this also, now that I'm kind of thinking about it, does feel a bit like it was decided in the last week. Because beyond this, where Seth said he's at the mountaintop, and last night he like sputtered every line that you would say in a movie or a TV show, right before things turn the complete opposite way. I mean, that's the setup, right? You're riding high. You're trying to get that turn, that effect of shock, that, oh my God, now it's the opposite. Oh my God, like, I get it. But the reason I think it's kind of last second is because there has been no previous real kind of platform that their foundation they've been laying to lead up to this moment. You weren't seeing any previous tension. They all worked like a well-oiled machine. They did take their lumps at the beginning of their group, and it took a while to get some victories under their belt, and then they finally did, and Rollins was having his quote-unquote injury and all that. But it didn't seem like this was where they were leading to. I mean, there was no real... There's no tea leaves to read. I mean, I'm sure if you go back, maybe you can find a glance here and there, but I don't think it was on purpose. It was probably totally not by design. And it just feels very much like this was something that was done at the very last second here. And I could be wrong. Maybe Unreal, the WWE Unreal show will prove me wrong otherwise. But usually when there's a build to a moment like this, that's a big deal. You have the top group on Monday Night Raw, or Monday Morning Raw in this case, with one of the top heels in the company, have that group explode. Usually a story like that you have in mind several months before. And instead, it kind of just happens out of nowhere, which is why everyone's shocked. And sure, it's creating a buzz. And it's unpredictable. But this is where my theory of doing things that are unpredictable, you better make sure they're also the right thing, because if they're not, the unpredictability is a short-term gain for a long-term loss of making the wrong decision. And I hope I'm wrong, because I want WWE to succeed. I'm sure you do too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this show. But my point is, to reiterate again, that it feels kind of last second. We will see. We will see if this, maybe we'll never know. Okay. So then we had a graphic tout John Cena's 100th PLE win, which did occur at the PLE over the weekend at Crown Jewel. Backstage, Adam Pearce asked a referee to get him an update on the health of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. Dom questioned why he had a title match with Rusev next week, and he said he seems to be the only working champion. Oh, I love it. AJ said Dom had a point. He said Finn and JD should defend the tag titles against him and Dragon Lee. Pearce agreed and told Dom that he can inform Balor and McDonough. Then the Finn Balor and McDonough, the broadcast team announced the matches for next week, which I really do enjoy when they do this. It gives you something to look forward to next week. Balor and JD take on AJ and Dragon Lee for the World Tag Titles. That kind of feels like it's a match, or rather a title-changing match, because these two haven't really defended them in a little bit. The tag titles have been largely underutilized or not utilized nearly at all on Raw, which tells you when they revivorate, is that a word? No. Resuscitate? That's the word. When they resuscitate something that's been forgotten for a little while, that tells you that when they bring them back into the spotlight, they're making a change. I would heavily favor AJ Styles and Dragon Lee to win next week. Heavily. And maybe Dom is the reason, by hook or crook, and that's when you finally get Finn versus Dom for the Intercontinental Championship, or maybe Dom is then cost the Intercontinental Championship at the end of the night by Finn after Finn loses. I mean, I think it's just in my own mind, I'm coming up with this on the spot, but it seems to be like a big week next week for maybe the final destruction of the Judgment Day as we knew it, with potentially both men losing the belts. One or both, but maybe building to Finn versus Dom, which has been a long time coming. Long time. We also get Becky Lynch versus Maxine Dupree for the Women's Intercontinental title, which almost has a 0% chance of Maxine winning, but crazier things have happened. So a lot of title matches next week. All right, third hour here. We get Jackie Redmond introducing Stephanie Vaquer, who made her entrance, and she spoke with her on stage, congratulated her. Vaquer said she felt blessed to be the first in history to win 4 titles in a year. And she was interrupted very quickly, as expected. They never really let her talk very long. And with good reason. Her accent is very thick. She gets most of her words out, but I'd say like 25% of what she says, I really have to strain to understand because she does have a heavy accent. So it's not exactly it's not perfect to the English speaking audience, which is their core audience. The vast majority of their audience does speak English. So she should learn and continue to try to learn how to speak English. Yes, she should. I know nowadays that's, I don't know, racist or some kind of silly label, but it makes sense from a business perspective. You want to be able to speak to your consumers. They shouldn't have to adhere and be expected to learn your language. You should learn theirs. I mean, that's just the way it is. Okay. The point blank. So I think it could help her if she continues to, and maybe she is or isn't, but I think it would behoove her to continue to learn how to speak English, at least in a way that is acceptable and coherent for a national televised program. I mean, like she just should, but somebody will take that and spin it. I could care less. Makes sense. It just makes logical sense. But anyway, Raquel and Roxanne interrupted. Vaquer said it's not her problem that they were in a bad mood because they lost their match. And Perez said she would be champion if she had been in the title match she deserved because she was the last person to beat Io Sky. Stephanie said Perez would never beat her and challenged her to stop crying and do something. Perez said she would do it on her time, not Vaquer's. Okay. Fine. Kind of your standard setting up for a future program with Stephanie. And that should be the only time, by the way, we see her wearing the Crown Jewel Championship. The same goes for the men as well, for Seth. I don't want to see the Crown Jewel Championship till next year. No one does. Nobody. It's insanely oversized, by the way, too. All right. We then get CM Punk versus Jey Uso versus LA Knight in a triple threat to become number 1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. The match went 13 minutes and 30 seconds with CM Punk winning. So CM Punk is the number 1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. The finish is Knight hitting Jey with a DDT. He went for the middle rope, jumped up top, hit a double elbow drop on the way down. Knight was unable to pin either man, and then Knight superplexed Punk. And moments later, Knight hit Punk with a BFT and then cleared Jey from the ring. Knight covered Punk, but Jey pulled Knight to the floor and put him down. Jey came in, dove onto the knees of Punk, who followed up with a GTS and got the victory. And CM Punk is now your number 1 contender for the world title to face a seemingly newly turned babyface Seth Rollins. So again, very weird dynamic here. If we're supposed to still feel sympathy for Seth and what just happened to him, that he was betrayed, but also want to see CM Punk win. It's an interesting, very interesting dynamic here of what they're going to do. So I'm not really sure, but they got themselves in a heck of a pickle from what I can see. Again, after the match, we all know what happened. I explained that at the top of the show. We already know. And Seth Rollins ends up getting speared by Breaker and a tsunami and all the rest. And Paul Heyman does what he does, which is side with the people and the men with the most power, because that's who Paul Heyman's character is. And it's fun. And you know what? Paul Heyman will not let these two fail. He is, as we know, one of the most skilled men on the mic. But if you're going to have Breaker and Reed still need the help of Heyman, why would you break them up if you feel they don't need Seth? If you feel like they can go off on their own and they don't need Seth, which is clearly the message here, that they're ready. They don't need Seth anymore. We're going to turn this around quick. Well, then you're saying they still need Heyman. So what's the point here? See, there has to be a larger goal in mind. There has to be a bigger picture we're not seeing, that we're not privy to. There always is, because we're not part of the meetings. We're not part of this, these board meetings and these creative meetings and whatever else they do to keep the storylines and the angles going. So there is a means to an end that we can't see. And I just hope it's right. I mean, Breaker's a star. Reed was coming off of, I talked about Breaker and everything else, but Reed was coming off of the biggest victory of his career, beating Roman Reigns in a match that I know a lot of people said was kind of, I enjoyed it. I know a lot of people didn't. I thought it was good, but he came off nonetheless of beating Roman Reigns on a big stage, giving him momentum to continue to build and hone his craft, working with Seth, and especially on the mic, which is where he needs to work. And same with Breaker. They're not horrendous on the mic, but they both need work. I think anybody with 2 ears can see that. We've certainly seen worse, but they need that connection with the audience. They need to continue to build that dominance. And it just, premature is the word of the week. Again, that is just, at least the way I see it now, and I'm sure some of you do too, but I also am willing to see where it goes for a short period. Okay. Not forever. A couple months. If we get to Survivor Series, I think that's where I'll kind of take temperature for the first time for real. If we get to Survivor Series and Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker are in some kind of just meaningless tag team match, or even if they're world tag team champions, I would actually look at that as a demotion, because you're riding with the world heavyweight champion, the top guy on Raw, a future Hall of Famer, and you may not have championships, but you're working with and getting TV time with the biggest guy on Raw, one of the biggest. Okay, you could argue Punk, I get it, but he is one of the biggest guys on Raw. I would argue that's a bigger spotlight in many ways than being a tag team champion. No disrespect to the tag team belts, but they didn't fit that. It felt like they didn't need that at the time. So even if they become world tag team champions or WWE, whatever the just WWE tag team champions, I would still look at that as a demotion for them because of where they came from, because of where they were. So Survivor Series at the end of November after Thanksgiving is really where the first time I'm going to look at it and be like, things don't really make sense here. I'm willing to let things go. That's like, 6 weeks away. I think 6 weeks is a fair time frame to at least not make a complete final judgment, but to look at it and go, all right, now I can see what they're doing here, and I'm on board. I'm in lockstep with you. Let's go. So we'll see. I mean, again, I'm very curious to see what you guys think of this, where they could be going. Maybe a complete storyline I'm missing, a big return I'm missing. There always is. You guys are smarter than I am with a lot of things. You guys watch more details of the show than I do. So perhaps there is something big that I'm missing that you guys are screaming and going, "Oh my dude, how are you not thinking about this or this?" Cool. Bring it to the mailbag. The mailbag is a great place for you guys to vent or to give me your ideas. Mailbag at wwepodcast.com is the email. You can also go to Patreon, patreon.com/WWE podcast. If you want to go ad free. Those of you, again, on the NXT, previously known NXT tier, you will still be on that tier until your month is up, and then you'll have to decide if you want to continue with us or maybe you want to move on. That's cool too. But we're restructuring, condensing, rebranding, giving us a new coat of paint with the new logo, as you hopefully see here in this podcast. If you're listening on Apple, I hope the podcast is new logos there. I did upload the new one today, so it's a little more condensed, a little bit more simplistic. It doesn't have me on the logo, which, from a self-serving perspective is probably for the best. I did spend a lot of money on the previous logo, so I got my money's worth, I think. But this one, I just wanted to make it simple, and I hope I did that. So anyway. There we go. All right. I know on Monday I normally don't do the review for Raw, but here we are. and I hope you enjoyed it. Again, head on over to Patreon if you want to get yourself an ad-free experience, because that's a good place to do it, or Apple as well. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I'll be back I'll be back tomorrow night. It might be a retro show, a nostalgic show, one from years gone by from previous hosts. That's always good to hear a different voice other than mine, a different brain other than mine for sure. Thank God there's only one of me in this world. I mean, I couldn't imagine that any more than one. One is certainly enough. So you get to hear other people's more intelligent takes than mine. And so I'll probably post a retro show. We're also going to be trying to revive the After Dark show and the NXT and maybe AEW. I know that that's been something that needs a little time and effort as well, but the NXT spot is still open. If you are interested in the NXT review, email me at mailbag@wwepodcast.com. All right. If you want to maybe contribute to the show, be a part of the team, and review NXT on a weekly basis, email me. All right. And I do ask that you have some kind of microphone that's not built into your laptop, some kind of quality mic. Doesn't have to be a $200 mic, $300 mic. You can even get a good one for like $20, $30, $40. Okay, you can. But also that you're timely, reliable, simple stuff. That's it. All right. So we'll talk if you're interested. But that'll do it for me here on the WWE podcast for this Monday. You'll hear from me in the next couple of days, and stay tuned for more changes and more updates to Patreon and to X and to really the whole brand as we kind of give it a shot in the arm, so to speak. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.